always talks about A players, but this is quite an interesting topic if you really go deeper, where it's like, I always wonder, like, do you fully need a whole team of A players?
A player attitude, for me, is a non-negotiable. Skills can be taught, right? There's not that many roles where someone can be an A player in your business on day one. You mentioned job boards. The best talent is not hanging out on job boards just waiting for your job to show up and pop up, right? They're happily crushing it for another business. They've got to be targeted. Anything, it's about being intentional about it. It's about defining, what is important to you. Because if you don't define your culture and don't define your values, then a culture will kind of be created on its own. Every time someone hires locally, there's a compromise, because all you can do is hire the best person you can find within a sensible commuting radius of your office, right?
All right, I'm here with Noel from JobRack, and I was very excited for this chat because he's actually one of the few truly genuine recruiters that I know in the agency space. And if you run an agency, then you should be very excited for this chat because, as you know, an agency at its core is really just a collection of people. And so even from the finance side of running an agency profitably, this all comes down to your ability to get talent for a reasonable price, to buy their time, to package their time, and then sell this on to your clients to get a desired outcome, and ideally for a higher price than the price you pay for it. And so if you want to run your agency profitably, and actually build a real business that will scale, that is all it all comes down to that ability to buy the time and sell the time effectively. And so this is where Noel is really the expert, where they have access to a lot of great talent, and he knows all the insights and the tips that you need to know to really acquire this time well, and how you can make sure you're using the team in the most effective way to make this dynamic work. And so Noel, thank you for taking the time to get on this call with me. Why don't we start by you sharing just a bit more about what you do, and maybe even give like a case study or an example of how you help agencies.
Yeah, sure thing, Joey. So I'm Noel, based here in London. I run JobRack.eu, and we help agencies find really, really great remote team members, specifically from Eastern Europe and South Africa, the kind of remote hiring sweet spot of the world. I think, the best way to do this is talk through a case study. So we've worked with hundreds and hundreds of agencies hiring thousands of remote team members. And I use the word team members really intentionally, because this isn't about freelancers. It's not about like gig workers or project workers. It's not about like digital nomads on the beach in Thailand. This is about like serious remote jobs for serious remote job seekers, right? The kind of people that you need in your agency to build and grow your agency, right? You need committed people that are, amazing, basically. We're all about helping agencies find people that are as good or better than anyone they could find locally. And the icing on the cake is that, they're half the cost. So a good example is some work that we've worked with for many years now with Mark and the team at Newfangled. So Newfangled are an agency that helps agencies with their own marketing. And I first kind of connected with Mark probably like 5 years ago now. And we were talking about a developer role. And at the time it was about they wanted someone to support their kind of CTO, take work off his plate. And so we found them a really, really amazing developer. And about 3 or 4 months after this developer had started, there was a conversation that I had where it was like this realization had hit them that they'd initially come to offshore hiring because of the cost saving, but then they were like this, holy shit kind of moment, he's amazing. He's better than the people we've hired locally before. And this is the realization and the moment that a lot of agencies have. And off the back of that, it's like, hey, well, can you get us an email marketing specialist or a PPC specialist? Yes, we can. So we went ahead and did that. And I think we've hired about 7 or 8 people for the Newfangled team in all different roles. Both back office like client delivery, and client facing as well. And that's often the journey that agency owners go on, start maybe with kind of client support or back office kind of stuff, then realizing that actually the caliber of people outside of the US or outside of Western Europe is pretty amazing. And it's certainly equal and oftentimes a lot better than you can find locally without the, without a lot of the expectation entitlement challenges that is a little bit rife these days in the kind of the Western world. So I think that's a good example. We've worked with lots of agencies in a similar way that just kind of start that journey through hey, let's get an understanding of what's possible and then build out from there.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, because from the finance side, we always talk about hiring as well. And I think there's still this misconception where hiring feels like something you can just do. Like people still, it's like, oh, you just post a job, you get some people in. People even get pretty advanced with it, with like all these automations. But what always is often forgotten is just the opportunity cost of not hiring on time. And this is where we, from the finance side, pretty much always notice massive gaps in opportunity, even where it's maybe you don't need someone like right now, but by not having that team member available, you are, whether like consciously or subconsciously, just limiting your own growth by not being able to take on more work. And so a lot of the time it's a big barrier that they have to jump over, where it's like we need a new account manager, but it's like 10K a month, and that feels a bit risky, and it's like maybe we need a couple more clients first. Like we kind of have to wait, but then that means you're not aggressively marketing as well, because like your team is already at capacity, and so it's very difficult usually to balance that hiring and sales cycle. And that's where I think especially like having that combination of more affordable people and just maybe local people can be very, very interesting to make sure you're not limiting your growth even. And so in this short video, I don't want to go over all the basics of like, can they speak English? Will they show up on time? All of these things. The one question I really wanted to kind of get your take on is more about like the quality even of these people and of people that you need in an agency in general. Because like everyone always talks about A players, but this is quite an interesting topic if you really go deeper, where it's like I always wonder, like, do you fully need a whole team of A players, or is it just more realistic and maybe more profitable to have this combination of like a core of A players and a core of maybe B players who can do the work well and like really fit in? But I'm very curious to get your take on that, because should people just only look to hire A players, or like how do you think through this quality question?
Yeah, so I think the definition of A players is really tough, right? Like I got A players on my team, but they're not A players at everything, right? Even within their role, there are things that they're better at and things that they're working on, or things that we kind of like we make allowances for. And so an A player bookkeeper looks very, very different from an A player account manager, right? In an agency, for instance. And even an A player account manager probably isn't an A player at everything. Like I said, I was at a talk a little while ago, and one of the comments there was that they didn't want to hire A players because there's only so many of them. And so what they wanted to do was have systems and process that enables B players or even C players to deliver and show up as A players. So I think we should be striving to hire the best people possible, right? And there are some non-negotiables. You mentioned English. People have got to be able to communicate clearly, even if they're not client facing, right? Life's too short for communication challenges. People need to be willing to speak up, right? And challenge you as the boss, right? Because as founders and owners, we're not always great at communicating. We're not great at being clear about what we want. So having people that are proactive, very happy to challenge us and be direct, offer suggestions, offer ideas, and tell us when things could be improved or when they're wrong, that's super, super important. People having the right attitude. So A player attitude, for me, is a non-negotiable. Skills can be taught, right? So it's finding this balance, and it's defining what is an A player for you for this role. Right. And there's not that many roles where someone can be an A player in your business on day one, because there's always nuance about what's right for you and your clients, etc. So I think it's really important I don't mind the term A player, but what I want is, and what I do is I help people get hiring clarity. So I help people define who the right person is for this role, so that, if we work together, we can go out and find them. You mentioned job boards. The best talent is not hanging out on job boards just waiting for your job to show up and pop up, right? They're happily crushing it for another business. They've got to be targeted. And against all this, you get this friction of utilization rate in an agency and profit margin, right? If you hire too soon, then it squeezes your profit margin. If you hire too late, well, your team get burnt out, they get stressed, they're at 99% utilization rate or worse. It takes time to hire the best people. And that's one of the the benefits, obviously, with the finance hat on. If we can find an agency amazing people at half the cost. So you mentioned like 10K a month for an account manager, right? Well, in Eastern Europe and South Africa, an amazing, really experienced agency account manager is going to be about $3,500 a month, right? So if you can hire at that kind of salary for equal kind of capability and equal kind of A player-ness, if you like, then you can hire a lot earlier. You don't have to squeeze your team. You don't have to frustrate your clients, and you don't have to squeeze your profit margins. So I'm working with a lot of US agency owners that, some of them are coming at this for the first time, and I'm having more and more conversations where they're like, my competition are hiring offshore and they're still providing a really great service. I can't ignore this anymore because their costs are 50% lower than mine. All agencies are getting their profit margins squeezed. So, it kind of becomes very difficult to just truly be like, hey, I'm only going to hire locally in, the UK or the US or Germany, for instance.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because like it is obvious to me, like a good person can be a good person in any country. It's not like someone that is based in the US will be by default better than someone based offshore. But one question I do often get when we discuss it with clients as well is just how you make sure the culture stays strong. And I'm very curious what your takes are on like any like more tangible things you can do, like especially if they have a more US based or wherever they are, like a more local team. If you now start introducing, offshore people, like what are some tangible things that you even just like for the positioning of the company to, not go into any stigmas, but keep really that culture and just that positioning strong.
Yeah, most important thing is to be really intentional about it, right? So, and this applies if you're in person as well, right? Lots of people are like, oh, well, you can't have a good kind of remote, you can't have a good team culture if you're remote, which suggests that if you're in office, you automatically have a good team culture. I've worked in some hideous office cultures and like toxic office cultures. So being in office does not automatically make a good culture. So like anything, it's about being intentional about it. It's about defining, what is important to you. Because if you don't define your culture and don't define your values, then a culture will kind of be created on its own. And for me, and I've got, I've done a lot of kind of talking, a lot of content around this. Culture is this big word, right? But culture is formed from small actions, right? So at JobRack, for instance, we have a fun team meeting every month, right? We don't talk about work, we do fun games, we get to know each other. We get to know each other with every call we do. We have little questions or little fun things. We've been doing like JobRack cribs recently where we show each other around our place because it's part of getting to know each other. If you're in an office, then you have these moments like the water cooler moments or someone's birthday, they bring cake in, right? When you're hybrid or when you've got people in office and remote, it's just about being intentional, right? And saying, hey, we're going to get together and we're going to get to know each other. Maybe we're going to do a team retreat. Maybe as the CEO or the owner, I'm going to keep them abreast of what I'm actually up to because a lot of the time they don't know what you do, right? Yeah. So how can we kind of encourage communication, have learning channels on Slack or Microsoft Teams, whatever you use as your comms? It's really all about communication and helping people be really comfortable to ask for help and to challenge and give and receive feedback. So there's lots of little things, keeping people updated, celebrating people's birthdays, celebrating work anniversaries, getting to know your team members in a way that's a little bit easier in office. It just takes a bit more intentionality if you're remote, but that's the big thing. I'm happy to chat. I can chat for hours on this stuff, but it's little actions that build the kind of culture that you want.
I really like that. I think we might have to implement some of those ourselves as well. That's really good. To kind of go more practical side indeed of like organizing the team to do it. So you already mentioned like it often makes sense to maybe start with more support roles, but then as you get the relationship with the client, you can pretty much give them any role, even the front-facing, client-facing roles. Just like for someone thinking of like, all right, like they're open to it, they can see the benefits, like the numbers. We don't even have to go really into them. It should be self-explanatory needs. Lower salaries often means more profit left, higher revenue per employee, all of the metrics there. But just of how to actually approach this and how to think about a team structure when you're introducing more like offshore roles or just indeed from like the roles that you can provide. Do you have any like practical tips? Like start maybe with support roles, like more like tangible bookkeepers, media buyers, or is it really just like whatever role you need, just get that role in and see how it goes?
Yeah, I think there's two different camps on this, right? One is about some people need to get comfortable. They need to walk before they run, right? And so if it's someone's first foray into offshore hiring, then it's probably slightly more common that people go back office or kind of support roles, not client facing. And that can still be very senior roles, like a really great media buyer, PPC specialist, SEO specialist. It's not about junior roles. We don't actually do any junior roles. For us, it's all about really experienced mid to senior hires. It's down to your own level of comfort and confidence. So I'm having lots more conversations with agency owners that have heard success stories. We get a lot of referrals because our agency clients are really, really happy with how we work and what we do. And so when they hear that another agency has hired account managers or strategists or whatever it might be, then they're like, oh, well, if they've done it and they've had a great experience, and then maybe I can do that. And the need that they have is, client PPC strategist, right? So I think it all comes down to your need, right? If the thing that you're just really struggling with is to hire really great client account managers, that's where you should start. A lot of it's about figuring out what's right for you. What's the business that you want to run? What's the team? We've got some clients that historically wanted to be in office because they liked going to the office. They liked having their team around them every day of the week, etc. The world's kind of changed. There's not that many businesses left that are still in office 5 days a week because, workforce changes, people want different things. And the flexibility and what it enables if you are a bit more open and a bit more hybrid, then it's huge. So I think it's about figuring out where are you at right now as your business? What are the pain points? What are the bottlenecks? And getting, like I mentioned earlier, getting hiring clarity. So really understanding what's possible. What does that mean? Are there any compromises? Every time someone hires locally, there's a compromise because all you can do is hire the best person you can find within a sensible commuting radius of your office, right? That's a compromise. That's probably not where the best talent are. So I think it's that hiring clarity is key. Start with the roles that are going to make the biggest difference to you, whether that's getting stuff off your plate, that's supporting your clients, helping you grow. And again, like I said, I'm always happy I do a lot of like hiring strategy and offshore hiring strategy calls where I'm helping people figure out the right route for them, if it's right for them, right? And that's one of the things, I regularly speak to people. It's like, hey, this isn't a fit. You shouldn't do this because it's not what you want, or it's not what's going to drive you.
No, I like it. I think that's a very good point to kind of wrap this up on. And the final thing I'll share is like from our position and like all the agencies we work with, we do really see the ones that are seeming to really have like a more like almost a machine style agency where it's almost more input output. We usually do see that they have like this maybe more core team of more experienced roles, can be offshore, can be onshore, and then need a support team that just really like can fulfill the work and have that good process in place. And if you can nail that balance, that's like a very scalable agency, especially from the finance side. So with that said, I'm sure people will have questions or more info. You have a great playbook. I already forwarded this to some of our clients. Is that the best place to learn more, or should I just get a call with you? What's the best place to reach you?
Yeah, definitely. So I've recently released an offshore hiring playbook, I should say. You can get it at jobrack.eu/playbook. It's about 65 pages. It's a full book, tells you everything you need to know and all the questions you might have around offshore hiring. But if you're an agency owner and you're busy, you probably want the TLDR, too long didn't read version. You can just book in a hiring clarity with me. There's no sales pitch. We're just going to chat about what's going on for you, what your challenges are, and help figure out what the right route might be for you with hiring, whether that's offshore or onshore. So you can head to jobrack.eu and you can book in a hiring clarity call.
Amazing. Noel, appreciate the time and the insights. And thank you for watching.
Hey, no worries, Joey.